Hello, everyone. This is James Shore. Welcome to Let's Code Test-Driven JavaScript. You're watching the How-To channel, which is our new channel focused on looking at how to solve specific JavaScript problems in a deep way. In this first series for the How-To channel, we're focused on what beginners need to know about professional JavaScript development. We're going to look at a basic problem, specifically we're going to look at a really common effect that you see in JavaScript, which is switching between different displays on a page, basically tabs or any other sort of making stuff appear and disappear at will. Now, you could, of course, jump onto Google and search for how do you do tabs in JavaScript, and you'll find this on Stack Overflow. And there's a nice little link here to JS Fiddle where you can grab some source code, paste it into your page, and have tabs working. And that's effectively what I've done here. And you'd be done in about 30 minutes. But obviously, that's not what we're going to do here, because if you do that, do you really have something that you can work with? Do you really understand what's going on here? Or have you just cut and paste some code? The difference between a professional programmer and a code monkey is how much they understand what they're doing. So in this series, what we're going to do is we're going to take this code, well, not this code specifically, this concept of switching between tabs, dig into it very, very deeply, and see how to implement it in a professional way. That means not just implementing the tabs, but also building up the whole ecosystem of professional development around that. And I'll get into what that means in just a moment. Now, this how-to channel is, if you're new to Let's Code Test-Driven JavaScript, this is one channel out of 4 at the time of this recording. We have a recorded live channel, which is suitable for advanced beginners all the way up to expert practitioners. We, depending on where you jump in, we look at things like Node, continuous integration, cross-browser testing, and then as the show goes on, we get into more advanced topics, including very cutting-edge innovations like lately we've been creating an entirely new way of test driving UIs with CSS. So if you're a more advanced practitioner, you might want to check out the recorded live channel. Another channel that we have is the Lessons Learned channel. This has sort of concise reviews of basic concepts like lint or Git or test-driven development. If you want a summary of the workflow that we use in professional JavaScript, I suggest looking at this JavaScript Workflow 2015 video. And then finally, again, for intermediate to advanced practitioners, we have the lab where we look at tools and advanced concepts. We have a whole bunch of series on front-end frameworks. We have a nice series on working with legacy code. So these are the things that we have right now on the series. The how-to channel is going to have eventually multiple series in it. This first series is focused on beginners. So if you are new to JavaScript or just starting out in your professional career, I think this is going to have a lot for you. Now, I am going to assume that you know how to program, you know what a for loop is, you know what variables are, and so forth. But I'm not going to assume that you have much experience with JavaScript specifically, and I'm going to assume that you haven't worked in a professional environment before, or you are fairly new to a professional environment. So that is what this channel is about. Welcome, and let's go ahead and get started. What we're going to cover in this specific series is, again, diving deep into this concept of how do we do tabs, and specifically, how do we do tabs in a professional way. You can take code and cut and paste it into a site and be up and running quickly. The problem with that, though, is that if you don't understand it, you're not going to be able to maintain it. Even if you do understand it, this kind of code, this leads to spaghetti. This leads, you build, the first time you do something like this, everything works great. The second time you do it, everything works great. But as you continue to add cruft and layer concepts on top of concepts, it gets increasingly difficult to manage it all. Professional development, in my mind, is about not just making things work today, but also thinking about the long term, lowering the cost of development overall, not just banging something out as quick as possible right now. So in the process of building out this fairly simple JavaScript effect, we are also going to introduce a lot of things that you'll see in a professional environment. We're going to cover version control with Git. We're going to look at using Node and NPM to create a reproducible build. We're going to do static code analysis and linting, cross-browser testing, JavaScript modules, test-driven development of front-end code, which is something you still don't see all that often. Working with the DOM, not jQuery, but the actual JavaScript document object model. And of course, we'll also consider things like design and refactoring. So a lot of things to cover, inspired by this simple effect, but not really so much about the effect itself, although of course we will see how to build these tabs. But along the way, we're going to look at all these other ideas and really see how professional developers approach their work. Now, if you're in a team environment, which you typically will be if you're doing professional development, you have a need to coordinate with other people on your team. And one of the most basic ways you coordinate is by sharing code with each other. And when you share code with each other, you need everybody on the team to see the same results from the same code. That seems like a really basic concept, but it is not as easy as it sounds. So our first chapter is going to be about creating a reproducible build, setting up your development environment so that everybody sees the same results at the same time. To start out with, we're going to get our tools set up. There are 4 tools that we're going to use all the time. The first one is a code editor. Second one is Node.js. The third is Git, a version control system. And the fourth is a command prompt. So in this episode, we're going to get those four tools set up. And then next time, we will start setting up our reproducible build. The first of these tools you're going to need is a code editor. You are welcome to use whatever editor you like. In this series, because I have it, I've already purchased it and I like it, I'm going to be using a tool called WebStorm. You can find this at jetbrains.com/WebStorm. Go to the download link and you'll get a 30-day free trial. Now, if you don't want to pay for this, again, feel free to buy something else. However, they do have free editions for students and for people who qualify. So you might want to look into that. And the individual license is only $50. However, there are lots of other editors out there. We're not going to be spending a lot of time on how to make the editor work. So choose whatever editor you like. So go ahead and download that and install it or use your favorite. The next thing we're going to need is Node.js. This is a way of running JavaScript from the command line, which is often used to make servers. We're going to use it for automation of our development environment. You can get it at nodejs.org. Go there, click install, and you'll be taken to the right spot. Now, the version we're using in the show is going to be 0.12.4. And unfortunately, as Node changes, newer versions do break old code. So you can see underneath the video on the Let's Code JavaScript site a link to the source code that we're creating during this episode. Every episode will have a source code link. If you want to make that code work, or if you want to follow along with the show, you will benefit by using the same version of Node that we do, which again is 0.12.4. To get that, you're going to go to Downloads, scroll down, click Other Releases, scroll down to 0.12.4, and you'll see a bunch of different release files. If you're on Windows, the one you want is this Node 0.12.4-x86.msi. If you're on Mac, you're going to want this PKG. And if you're on Unix, I'm pretty sure you're going to want one of these tar.gzs. But to be honest, I haven't tried to figure that out, but I'm assuming that if you're on Unix, you're very competent with installing packages. So go ahead and figure that out. If you have questions, go ahead and put them in the comments and we will help you out. So install Node. Again, for best results, install the same version I'm using here, but honestly, it will probably work for you if you just click the big install button. Finally, you'll need Git. If you're on Unix or Mac, you probably have Git installed already. If you're on Windows, you're going to come to git/scm.com and there'll be a Downloads for Windows button here. Go ahead and click it. On the Windows version of the installer, there's some perhaps a little confusing questions about how to install it. You should be fine just accepting the defaults. If you have any trouble, again, bring it up in the comments below this video on the Let's Code JavaScript site, and I will help you out. Okay, last but not least, we need a command prompt. If you're not familiar with the command prompt, or if you have used it but are not totally comfortable with it, get comfortable with it, because we're going to be using it a lot in this show. This is the command prompt is something that professional developers need to know how to use. So on the Mac, the way you're going to bring this up is by going into the Finder, go to your applications and look for Terminal. And it is here under Utilities. There it is, Terminal. That will bring up a window that actually will probably look differently than this because I've customized it. Now, an easier way to bring it up, and the way I normally do this, is if you click the search button here or you press Command space, you'll get this Spotlight search. You can type Terminal, press Enter, and there you go. And honestly, that is the way I typically do it. On Windows, it will depend on which version of Windows you're using. This is Windows 7 right here. It's because I have it set up in a virtual machine, and that runs nice and fast on my Mac. You can go to All Programs and then Accessories and Command Prompt. Or in most cases, you can type Window R, the window key, and then R, and type CMD in the Run dialog that comes up there. Now, things are a little different on Windows 8, but I think that Windows R trick will still work for you. If not, again, bring it up in the comments. I'll be happy to help you out. All right, so there are our basics: our terminal, WebStorm or another editor, Node, and Get. Before the end of this episode, let's go ahead and set up our empty project directory. So taking your command prompt here, decide where you want your project to be. Now, for me, if I bring up the Finder here, I'm going to want it to be in my home directory, and then in Documents/Projects, and then a directory under there. If you're on Windows, you can bring up the Explorer window, Windows Explorer, and do something similar. I would probably put it under C:/Projects. Now, you could just create a folder for your new project right here in this projects directory by right-clicking on Windows, saying New, or on the Mac by saying File, New Folder. But because I want you to get familiar with the command line, we're going to do this from the command line instead. The first thing to do is to find the folder that you've brought up in your Windows. So here I've got from my home directory, Documents, Projects, and on Windows, it's starting at C:, and then Projects. So to get there, the way we're going to do this is bring up your command window. You can use the CD command. This means change directories. So on the Mac, I'll type CD space tilde, which means my home directory, because remember, we're looking at starting at the home directory, /documents, which means the documents folder inside the home directory, /projects. And there you can see we're now in the projects directory. And I can look and see what's inside this project directory by typing ls, which gives me a list of all the projects that I have here, all the folders and files I have in this projects directory. You can see them all right here. And I actually often prefer to type ls-la like that. And I have something set up where an alias on the Mac where I type ll, so you might see me do that from time to time. If you're interested in seeing how to set up that alias, go ahead and bring it up in the comments. I'll be happy to help you out. Now on Windows, similar idea. We want it to be in C:/Projects. So what we're going to do is we're going to say CD, change directory, /Projects, and there we go. We are already on the C hard drive. If for some reason you had your folder on a different hard drive, say D: or Z: or something like that, the way you would get there is just by typing D: enter, or whatever the letter of the hard drive you want it to be on might be. Typing CD space D: /Projects, surprisingly enough, will not put you on the D drive. So that's a little gotcha to keep in mind. Once you're in this directory, once you're in the directory that you want to use, here I'm going to say dir, that's like ls on the Mac. It gives me a list of all the files and directories in this folder. Now to create a new folder, I'm going to type md for make directory, and then the name of the project. And this project is going to be called How To Tabs. On the Mac, same deal. We'll type mkdir for make directory, How To Tabs. And then we'll change into that directory. So I'll say cd how to tabs. Now you saw there how it just jumped to the end there. That's because I'm doing something called tab completion. If you type the name of your directory and then type tab, it will automatically complete it for you. If you haven't typed enough to complete it, it will show you a list of everything it could do. So again, here we go. CD H tab gives me how to tabs. Works exactly the same way on Windows. CD change directory H tab completes it for me. And there we can see we are in our how to directory, which has nothing in it. So that is where we are going to start. Let's go ahead and bring this up in WebStorm or your editor. So I'm going to start WebStorm. Again, I'm using Command Space to bring up that search window. It brings up WebStorm for me. And now I'm going to say open. And here's a neat little trick for you. I've said open on WebStorm, and it gives me a directory to look into. If I go back here to my command window, I'm already in the right spot, right here in the how to tabs directory, which has nothing in it. If I say open dot, that will open that folder in the Finder, and then I can drag it over to WebStorm and say choose. And there we have it. Our How To Tabs project is opened in WebStorm. The same thing will work for you in Windows. What you can do is say start dot, start instead of open. The dot means the current directory. All right, that is the beginnings of our project. Thank you very much for joining me. Next time, we're going to start working on creating that reproducible build. Before we close, I have some exercises for you to try out. You, of course, can skip these, but I think you'll learn more if you try them. What I'd like you to do for this episode is simply follow along with what we've done so far. Install WebStorm or another editor of your choice. Install Node and Git. Create that empty project directory and open it in your editor. I'd also like you to do as much as you can from the command line. So open that command window, use the cd and make dir commands to create directories and to change directories. And another command you can try is rmdir, rmdir, or rd on Windows will delete a directory. Go ahead and give that a try. If you have any trouble, the comments are available underneath this video on the letscodejavascript.com site. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.